Alright, let's begin. So for this week's assignment, we had to do blocking text, high school initials, attractor mode, and mushroom regeneration. So as you can see here, the text blocks both the centipede and the blaster bullets. For actual gameplay, I can show in just a second. So here we have audio, shoots. If I press the M key, all the sounds get muted, and whenever the blaster is defeated, any damaged mushrooms will get repaired and points will be rewarded. So if I hit again, see all of them get repaired. And then if the player is defeated, it will do the effect, and then it will register for a new high score. So if I just type in some numbers, some letters, it puts it in, swaps to player 2. Player 2 dies, they also got high scores, so initials. I'm just going to press a bunch of space bars so that I can show that it can still register the blank spaces. Also, if the input attractor wants to behave, but it probably isn't, it also will make it so that it doesn't. Oh, yeah, saw right there that the blaster went straight. The bullet went straight to the F key, or the F text. Okay, so for actual code, sound manager functions similarly to the score manager, except instead of one cue, we have two, one for stop sounds and one for start sounds. Additionally, we also have a strategy system that will swap between muting and unmuting based off of whenever the M key is pressed. So the sound strategy has two modes, mute and audible. The mute mode is just empty functions so that we don't have to use if statements. The audible mode is where the actual calls to play and stop for the sounds are. For the grid regeneration, whenever the player is defeated, it will get damaged, the grid will be cleared of all its critters, and then we will store in the player the board state. So this board state is a 2D Boolean array that will keep track of all the mushrooms on the screen. If any of those mushrooms are either damaged or poisoned, it will be added to a list to be processed immediately at the end of this. So once all of that is processed, then we call the heal mushroom stage. This will take the damaged mushrooms we just found. It will create the explosion effect at their positions, heal them, and then pop them off the list. So in the explosion, we have this is where the sound and the scores are sent. When the animation is done, it calls back to the heal mushroom here, so that it can keep cycling this until all the mushrooms are removed from the list. That tells the grid that all of the mushrooms are done. So once that happens, it can check to see if the player is done for good. If they are, it checks for high scores. If a high score is made, it creates the initials. Otherwise, it ends the game. For the input initials, we have a text checks for text. Anytime a key is pressed, it adds it to the counter. If it's a backspace, it subtracts. Once 3 initials are inputted, it'll send them to the game manager and then destroy itself. So in the game manager, it takes those initials, gets the current player, and then inserts itself into the list, into the high score list, which was like what I showed last week, where it finds the position of the high score, inserts it, and then shuffles all the scores below it down one. And then once that's done, if we're in single player, it ends the game. Otherwise, it swaps players. The second last thing is the adding of the text blockers. So the text blockers, we get all the scores and initials from the high score list. We iterate through them and take the position of every glyph and create a text blocker. These text blockers are considered grid entities, which means that they can be added to the mushroom grid. I see over here, we can put them on the grid. This makes it so that the centipede actually sees them. And then we also register collision and set colliders. I used the blasted sprite for the 16 by 16 And I also have the empty draw function so that it doesn't actually draw them on the screen. But because of it has collisions now, that means that the bullet can collide with it, and we can have it so that it only destroys itself rather than damaging the blocker. And the last thing is the Attractor mode, which has just a bunch of alarms to do random movement. And that's it.